Welcome to the Bo Benson Show. If you like conspiracy theories, you like what's going on in the government, you like to learn about secret societies, you like to learn about Jehovah's Witnesses, this is the perfect channel for you. Please subscribe and make a comment. Welcome to the Bo Benson Show. So I want to teach you about the Zionistic belief systems of Watchtower, why they have them, where they came from, and that you can have an understanding of what Watchtower is, and that you'll understand that Watchtower is a pawn. It's not even a powerful group within the Zionist organization. It's a sacrificial pawn. And I want you guys to understand why that is and how that is. Alright, so the first thing that we need to understand is what is Zionism. So Zionism is a movement that was in the 19th century to enable the establishment of the homeland for the Jews. That is the textbook definition of Zionism. But there is a second Zionism that is out there that is associated with the cult. And when I say the cult, I'm talking about the occult. And that is the part of the Zionism movement that is what we focus on. And that's what Watchtower is. Watchtower is part of the flip side of the Zionism movement. So when you research Zionism and Zionistic orders, you will find out that there are many, many, many Masonic cults that are Zionistic in nature. And then you'll also find out that Satanistic cults are, and you'll find out a lot of sex cults are associated with Zionism. Now here in the United States is primary where I've learned this from, is a lot of cults that are involved in either sex cults or the occult itself, which is magic or belief systems in magic, are Zionistic in origin. Now I want to give you guys a warning. Because the United States media is controlled by the CIA, during President Barack Obama's administration, there was an alteration in the way that our media works and functions. From Barack Obama to now, media sources that are being used, which are considered mainstream media, you have to be very careful if the sources are correct or not. The older the material before Barack Obama, the better it is. And the reason for that is Barack Obama passed this law, which I'll show you right now. So if you guys are familiar with Barack Obama's administration, you'll know that this bill is what I'm talking about. This is the HR 5736 bill that was introduced into Congress between 2011 and 2012. Now, this is the Modernization Act, okay? And so you guys understand, this means at this point, the mainstream media was separate from the United States government. The United States government, CIA organization, took over the media. So Twitter, if you guys are familiar with Elon Musk, when he took over Twitter, he's the one who explained this and exposed this probably more than any other news outlet. But all your newspapers, all your mainstream media are owned by a few Zionist groups, and they are controlled by the CIA, and they run narratives. So it's very hard to understand if what they're telling you is a narrative and fake or true based on modern information coming from 2012 to now. Now that article is in 2014, so that's why I said, and I want to give you the warning, is the further back the information goes, the more likely it's going to be accurate compared to more modern American literature. Now, as far as other countries go, I can't answer that. I don't know the answer to that, but we do know for a fact that the United States media system is compromised here in the United States of America. So this is the bill, this is what it does, this is when it happened, this is the information. I'm just putting it in front of you guys so you have an understanding what it is. I'm not going to sit here and read all this. But basically, to make it simple, is the United States government wasn't allowed to use its own media source for propaganda against its own population. It was illegal. That is not the case anymore. So all media is used for propaganda against the United States itself by the government, which used to be illegal. Barack Obama did this. Barack Obama was the one that pulled this. This was the Zionist movement, and this is one of the most important steps that they have done in order to start focusing and creating the New World Order. So with that being said, we're not going to talk about government anymore. We're going to be moving back to our Zionist discussion. So remember, it's really important to know that there are two definitions of Zionism. There is the Zionism, which is the Jewish movement, and then there's the Zionism movement, which is a secret satanic order, or New World Order, or Masonic order. All those things are Zionist organizations, and they're secretly Satanistic in nature, but they identify themselves as religions. So I want you to understand from this point on, whenever I'm speaking about Zionism, I am not talking about the nation of Israel or the idea of Israel having its own country. That is not what I'm speaking about. It's important that you understand that that is a major definition that needs to be understood before we move on. Now we need to understand, what do these Zionists believe in? So most Americans, most Christians believe the idea that Jesus is God and that Satan is a fallen angel who is trying to play some kind of game with the Lord. This is the kind of ideology that most of us are taught. This is what Christianity says. This is what most people believe. This is somewhat true, but not exactly true. So the Zionist orders do believe that Jesus, which is God, exists, but they don't have the exact belief system that the Bible has. All right, Satan to them is an entity that is at par or similar to in power to the God of the Bible or the God of Hebrew, Yahweh. Now, Satan and the Zionist orders don't just worship Satan. They worship other entities and other demons that are powerful in nature. So they believe in a word that you should know, and I will share this with you. So Satanists believe in the Elohim. So the Elohim is a different layer of entities. So there's Yahweh, foreign gods, demons, spirits, angels. So this is the hierarchy structure of supernatural creatures that are in the Bible. Now, the Elohim means supernatural entities. They believe that the God of the Bible, Jesus, Satan, and all these entities are somewhat on the same spectrum of power. And the reason that that is the more that they are worshipped, the more powerful they become. So ancient gods' powers like Zeus, Hera, all these gods, they didn't believe in this idea of one super god. There were many, many gods. And those many, many gods, the more people worshiped them, the more powerful they became. So that is the ancient belief system before the God of the Bible that most people know. That structure is a new structure that's only been around for 2,000 years. Prior to the last 8 with recorded history, no other group believed this. And so the Zionist organizations don't believe that this is true. They believe that these gods that they worship, that the more people they get worshiping them, the more powerful they become, and that they can overpower the God of the Bible. So that is the belief system. And if you study ancient cultures and ancient belief systems, you'll find out that the Yahweh, God of the Bible, did have a different name. Now,
in these biblical texts is a deity who was very much part and parcel of a polytheistic system. He was not the only, he wasn't this solitary deity. We have one particular text in the book of Deuteronomy. It's a very old piece of almost like fossilized poetry that sort of speaks of a mythology whereby Yahweh, who becomes known as the God of Israel, the God of the Bible, was originally a son. He had a dad. His dad was El, the high god, who was, the high god in the Levantine part of the world. And originally, Yahweh was simply kind of one of that younger generation of deities, a son of a high god and high goddess. This particular deity eventually slowly starts to kind of take over a lot of the roles and functions of this high god. He basically, you could say, in theory, he kind of overthrows his own father, as is very typical in a lot of ancient mythology. So
Okay, so I just showed you some images of a biblical historian talking about the actual origins of the deity from the Bible known as Yahweh, and how he had different origins than what you guys currently know from a historical perspective. So the belief from a historical perspective versus what most Christians believe is completely contradictory. Now, I think that's really important to understand what these ancient cultures believed versus what modern Christians believe, because the Zionists are following the ancient belief systems. Now, part of those ancient belief systems is that you have to show idol worship to the entity that you worship. So that's really important. And so when you're looking at the organizations who are Zionistic, who are part of that group, you got to look at the things that they're doing. So for an example, let's just focus on Watchtower. How many times have you seen faces of demons, ancient gods within the literature? At this point, there's thousands of them. It's not just one or two. And the reason they do that is every piece of literature they put out, they have to put one of the symbols of one of the deities that they worship in order to gain more favor. So I'm going to show you a prime example of this. Okay, so you can pause this or you can just let this sit for a second. I want you to look at this image coming from Jehovah's Witnesses. So Jehovah's Witnesses created this image. And they are actually mocking Jesus and making fun of Jesus. Can you tell what they're doing? I mean, I want you to look at it really, really hard. Yes, I gave you a hint. So let's zoom in real carefully. Do you notice anything unusual about this image? It looks pretty normal, right? Well, there's something that you should notice. And if you didn't notice, you're not paying attention. This is the symbolism, the hidden symbols that they do in order to gain favor with the entities they believe in. Now, I'm going to show you what you're missing right now, so pay attention. Do you see? Jesus is sitting there with an erection. Now, this kind of thing is all over Jehovah's Witnesses Watchtower material. I'm telling you, it's in every single magazine. There's not a single thing they've published that doesn't have symbols of demons, doesn't have sexual parts in it, and they are very, very obvious with what they're doing. Now, you can't tell me that you just accidentally created a hard penis on Jesus Christ by mistake. So these are the kind of things that Watchtower does. These are the kind of things that Zionist groups do because they have to do them. This is part of the game that I told you about. So when you don't understand the rules of the game, you don't know what you're missing. When you understand what they have to do and what they do and what they believe in, because there is a belief of karma. They absolutely believe that if they disrespect the deity of Jehovah, right, that they're going to be punished for it. But if they do it in a way that the worshipers of Jehovah don't realize it, and when I say Jehovah, I'm talking about the God of the Bible. Because really, Jehovah is Satan in the literature of the organization. If you pay very, very close attention, you'll see that that is actually true. I mean, because you think about what the society tells you to do, and then you look at what modern Christians do. If you look deep at the organization and you look at Christian belief systems, they are contradictory. Christians typically want to take care of their family. They want to have a good, stable home. They want to honor their word. They want to be honest. They want to say things that are true. They want to stand up to evil. What does the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses tell you to do? You shun your family members who don't believe what the organization says. They believe in spiritual warfare where you lie to the general public and people around you to convince them to join the organization. You never tell them the truth until you have indoctrinated into a certain process. So you're in the process of lying and denying things to people all the time. Shepherding the flock of God, so on, 1914. The list of things that Jehovah's Witnesses lie about is literally almost endless. That is a Zionistic belief system. If you look at other cultures that are similar in nature, the same thing is happening. It's the same patterns. Now, the reason why the organization has so many issues with child abuse is because one of the deities that they worship, child abuse is a necessity for their worship. Now, that's why I said that Jehovah's Witnesses, the Church of Scientology, and I said that Mormonism are probably all in the same book because they all have those same child abuse issues. Now, some are worse than others, and also there are lots of Christian supposed organizations that have these same issues. Most of the time, you can research them, they are actually Zionist belief systems. So there are actual videos out there that go more in depth with this, which you guys can go and research, but I'm just going to go through a few of them. So some of the Zionistic Messianic belief systems is that there will be a point where a new world order will take over and religion will be wiped out, and that only their one sect or order will exist. That is one of the first signs that you are dealing with one of these Zionistic organizations. The other one is they have a big thing about reincarnation. Now, the Christian believe that you're going to die and that you are brought into heaven. A lot of these Zionist organizations, that you're going to be recreated on planet Earth or another planet similar to Earth. These are all Zionistic belief systems, and they all come from Messianic origin. So Zionism is a Messianic hybrid. So from history, we know that the Messianic orders came first. There were the ancient religions, then the Messianic orders, and the Messianic orders created what we know as modern Zionism. Now remember, if this is the Zionism that I'm talking about, is these secret orders like New World Order, Jehovah's Witnesses, and so on. When you learn what these people were teaching, like Jehovah's Secret Voice here, my video about this, the spirit world, this gentleman speaks to demons and then writes down the belief systems of the demons and then shares them as if they're coming from the source or Jehovah, God, Jesus, whatever you want to call it. It's very important that you realize that people who speak to spirits like this, a lot of times they're speaking to demons, is what they claim. Now, I'm not saying that demons exist or don't exist. I honestly don't know, but I'm telling you this is the belief system they have, and this is where these things came from or where they believe it came from. And like I said, if you look at the origins of the leadership of these organizations, you don't listen to what the general public is saying. You pay attention to what their actual belief systems are. You'll find out if they're a Zionist or not. You got to be smart about these things. You can't just believe what Jehovah's Witnesses are saying. Now, for example, this is a statue of worship that they use. This is inside Bethel itself, the headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. So their headquarters has this statue. Now, that goat sitting in front of the tower is something that they worship. Right? It's very obvious. Now, the mundane witness doesn't know this, and they go in here and they just kind of look at the statue and think it's just part of artwork or something. They have no idea that this is idol worship because they don't understand symbolism. Symbolism is incredibly important to the ritualized belief systems of these cult groups. I want to show you an example of symbolism. Is right here in front of you. Do you see that goat standing in front of the tower? What it's telling you is that that goat is a representation of Baal, the demon, and that it stands at the head of Watchtower. But because you're stupid and you don't pay attention, or you're ignorant or lazy, whatever your excuse is, you don't pay attention. It's very obvious. So Zionists like Jehovah's Witnesses and Zionist organizations and Masonic groups use this. Not all of them are part of, ritualized satanic groups. And I want to show you an example of what I'm talking about. So you'll see these symbols that mean things, but it's very important when you know you're dealing with Zionist groups, you pay attention to what those symbols are and figure out what they are. So for an example, this symbol that I have that I've shared with you guys, what does this stuff all mean? So I'm going to take a look. This is what it is. All right, so there's a false personalities. There's dead inside. There's a Masonic sacrifice, no blood, right? And then there's me. So all these ideas and stuff are in this one image. So you have the mask that has the JW organization symbol on it, showing you that at one point I had a false personality. Then the blonde hair is a symbol of me because I have blonde hair. And then the no face is the dead inside. So that was the feeling that I had when I was forced to wear the face of the organization. Now the red tie is a symbol for the Masons for blood sacrifice. So I'm making a statement about the no blood transfusion. So there's a reasoning behind everything that I show you with my symbol of myself. Now think about that kind of thing when you're dealing with Masonic groups, Zionistic groups, Watchtower, anything like that. Think about what they're showing you and what their meaning behind it is. All right, so now I want to lay down two things that I've already discussed several times, and I will say it again so that we understand what is going, so the audience is perfectly aware of what I'm telling you. When I am talking about the ritualized abuse with Masonic groups, I'm not referring to all Mason groups. I'm referring to only the ones that are into the occult. I just want that to be perfectly clear. Not all Masons are monsters. Some of these groups are. And I'm saying the same thing about people who are Zionists. Now, the Zionist movements I'm talking about are ones associated with the occult. Okay? I am not talking about the Jewish people or the Jewish belief systems. Though you can still be a Jew being part of a satanic Zionistic group. It is very possible that they are in a group that is run and the leader is a Zionist Satanist who is controlling and tricking other Zionists, just like Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses are a prime example of this. Okay, so here are some of the belief systems. So they do not believe in conforming, obviously, self-preservation, and undefiled wisdom. So these are things that the Satanist order believe in. And the reason they put these symbols in there, like I showed you with the Jehovah's Witness thing with Jesus' penis, is because they are telling you that they are Satanist and letting the audience know. And if the audience chooses to still worship them, even though they're showing these things that you should be looking at, that means that they're not going to be responsible for the karma that comes from that. They believe that if they trick somebody and lie to somebody, they get negative karma. But if they show who they are and what they are, and the person still chooses to worship them like Jehovah's Witnesses, then that is on the Jehovah's Witness. So the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is the name of the organization of that particular order of Satanism, that the members are Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Those individuals are responsible for their own actions because they choose to support CSI, pedophilia, all these things in the organization by hiding it and defending the elders. They have admitted to these deities and these people that they are worshipers of Satan. And they don't even realize that they're worshipers of Satan because they're doing things that Satan worshipers want without realizing that's what they're doing, because they're honestly sheep and ignorant. So just so you know, one of the other things that Zionists believe in is that these people who are following and don't realize who they're following, they're sheep and they're expendable and they're cattle. They plan on sacrificing them at the end to this deity. So in the minds of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, they are going to sacrifice all the Jehovah's Witnesses to Lucifer at the end. That's what they believe in. That's why they call them sheep. That's why they tell them that they're going to, quote unquote, ask them to do things that don't make sense from a spiritual perspective or from a human standpoint, or that they need to fight their own common sense. these bizarre terminologies and bizarre things that are throughout their literature don't use common sense, don't use reasoning, believe everything that the organization tells you, even if you think your life is in danger. All these things are coming from the order itself, because they want to train these individuals that they're willing to lose their lives and sacrifice themselves to the deity that they worship. Now, the real question is, well, we have known this for a very, very long time, that this is how they operate. Now, I don't recommend people doing this, but I actually went and spoke to a grand wizard of the Satanic Temple. Now, you guys are probably wondering, why on earth would I ever do that? So this is a grand wizard, and if you understand what that means, in the world of Satanism, one of the sects, this is one of the highest positions you can have. Now, when I spoke to the grand wizard, and I asked him specifically about Watchtower, he said that, yes, Watchtower, like many other organizations, are part of a satanic cult, but he said he does not know exact details, because each cult group has its own separate operating systems, and they are slightly different from one another. They do help one another, but they also turn on one another. They're capitalistic, and they will kill one another in order to gain power and to move up. So Watchtower, okay, is a pawn. And what that means is that the more powerful Zionistic groups are controlling Watchtower. And these groups are going to use organizations and churches like Watchtower as pawns. And they're going to use them as a sacrificial pawn in order to benefit their group. You got to understand the hierarchy structure of these belief systems. There are some deities and creatures that are at a higher level than others. So Jehovah, whatever deity that is using the organization as a pawn in order to elevate itself. So it's just a tool. And that's why right now you're seeing that the organization has been exposed for being what it is. And so now the Zionist groups and organizations and government entities are pulling favor away from them, because you are not supposed to openly let people know what you are. Once you've done that and you no longer have the ability to deceive them, you start to become less and less useful to them, and then you come to a point where you're not useful to them, and then they will sacrifice you. And when I say sacrifice you, they're going to let you fall, be arrested. That's why you find these Zionistic sex cults, that when you find out and you hear about, like Nexium, and you're like, how on earth did these people get away with doing this stuff for as long as they did? They had judges, they had senators, they had congressmen working with them. The reason is they're just like Watchtower. But these people got exposed, and once you get exposed and the general public knows who you are, that belief of karma will start to take effect. And if that karma starts taking effect in the belief system of the Satanists, they will turn on you and will have nothing to do with you, because they'll be worried that the negative karma that you've caused by exposing yourself will then bleed over into their sect and their group and their Masonic lodge and their Masonic belief system or their Zionistic group. So that's why when they get caught, the others all run.
Now, throughout history, we have seen this process happen over and over and over again. And honestly, the organization Watchtower is just another one. It's a new one. It's what, 150 years old? These groups will come and go, and there will always be a replacement waiting to enter the game. That's how it works. This is how it's been, and this is how it's always going to be. This is how these people do this, and this is how these people are. They believe these rules are real. They believe this game is real. They treat real life as if this is a game, because in their mind, this game is the reality.
Now, the reason I know that the organization known as Jehovah's Witnesses, you all know it as Watchtower, is part of this group and is a Zionistic group, besides the fact their magazine said they were Zionists, is that Crowley is the founder and the educator of the belief systems of the organization that you have now. All the doctrine changes that were brought in by Rutherford came from Crowley. He educated, taught, and changed the policies for the organization. So the organization that you see now is a byproduct of Crowley. Crowley is a known spiritualist who openly said and spoke to demons. The belief systems that the organization has about the New World Order, the new system of things, the dying and paradise earth resurrection, the fact that Jehovah is the mouthpiece, and that Jesus is secondary and is the son of Jehovah. Every single one of these oddball belief systems that do not fall in line with modern Christian belief systems, 100% of them are coming from this cultist. He ran his own cult, and he taught these belief systems to the people who taught the organization this. Now, do you remember how I told you how important it is not to pay attention to what the belief systems say, but the people who are teaching them? What are the names that you see here? Look at this. Starting New Magazine. Zion's Watchtower, 1882. Russell. Rejected the Trinity, 1884. In 1996 as the president. 1886. Russell created Studies in the Scriptures. Used pyramidology. I believe you could understand people's personalities based on measuring curses on their head and rivets. Watchtower Bible Tract Society. Blacks would return to their natural color of white. 1906. Claimed to the God mouthpiece. Predicted the end of the world by 1910. On Measuring Pyramids. 1914. First movie. He was the final messenger, seventh and final. By Russell died 1916. 1960, 1928. The society applied that to its leaders. So I want you to pay attention to some historical records. So we know that Rockefeller took over using lawyers and connections within Hollywood in order to remove the Zionists out. Then took over and started his own religion that was different, but yet still part of the Zionist movement in 1931. He gave them the name of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now here's the thing. He started predicting the end of the world. He was perfectly aware what the name Jehovah was. They knew that this was a mistranslation and that this was not the name of the Hebrew God. They were perfectly aware what Yahweh's name was. All their literature said it. They were perfectly aware of this. They were openly deceiving people in order to form a new religion for a new Masonic group with Zionist belief systems. The organization has been this way from the foundations. And one Zionist group took it over, and then another one took it over, and to this day, it's probably owned by a different group altogether. These Zionistic organizations that are cult members and are satanic in origin will devour one another in order to progress their own personal power. Now remember, the goal of each one of these is to become more powerful than the deity next to you. Right now, the most powerful of all these demons is Satan. He's the one that is worshipped the most, and there are generals and there are lieutenants. It's a military-based kind of organization within the demons that are in the, but they're based on worship. So the more you worship, the more powerful you become. So that's why the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses is supported by these other satanic groups in the background because, you know, they want laws passed to protect their pedophilia and the other things they're involved in. But once you get exposed, like I said, that's when things start crumbling, because then the other Zionistic satanic groups will see an opportunity to put you down and replace you with them. And that's what's happening to Watchtower right now. Okay, so now I have armed you with knowledge that you can use. You know who started the organization. You know what belief systems they come from. You know the history of where they come from. You know what they actually worship. You know how they worship. They know how they tell you. You now know enough tools at your discretion to use them to benefit yourself. You are weaponized, and you know what to do, how to do it, who did it, and you know where to research, you know what to look at, and you know what to do. I have given you all the tools that I can to help you understand what you are involved in. If you are listening to this video and you are a member of the organization, you know now the belief systems that are over 10,000 years old. You now know about the organization's history into the occult, who taught it, where they got it, and they admitted to it. There's nothing that you don't know now that is going to keep you in the organization. You know what it is, where it came from, what they did, and what they are.
Well, knowing this, then, we are not embarrassed about adjustments that are made, nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously. We understand this is how Jehovah operates.
Talks about reasoning on matters. Now, there's something that the apostates are talking about and trying to put forward. The media has picked it up. Others have also picked it up. And that is our scriptural position of having two witnesses a requirement for judicial action if there's no confession. We will never change our scriptural position on that subject.